Zach Servideo here from Boston Speaks Up. I'm here with Kyle Wallack of Refined Graffiti. What's up, Kyle? How are you?
Hey, how you doing? I'm good.
I'm doing well. You're down in Florida, so it's a bit warmer than it is here in Boston in April. But spring has sprung, and then snow has appeared, and spring has sprung again. You know how that is.
Yeah,
You're from the Northeast. I
I was
want to
just
sort of
there.
yeah, yeah. Oh, were you like super
Yeah,
recently? Yeah.
yeah. I landed
Did
yesterday. I was in Connecticut. It was my birthday on Sunday, so I went to the Yankee game, and then I was in Connecticut for a couple days. So I got a
nice. So
little
your
bit of the
birthday.
cold.
Nice. Yeah, it was an okay weekend though after the rainy week we had last week. So your birthday was the
Yeah,
7th of April?
yeah, it was
Mine was the 5th. So we're birthday
crazy.
bros.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
All right, I love it. Yeah, I had a good birthday weekend. You went to Endicott College, right? So I was over at
Yeah.
Bonefish Harry's for my birthday dinner this past weekend. If you
Oh,
ever
that's
made it out
awesome.
that way, yeah.
That's awesome.
Um, so for listeners, as we're just kind of getting into our a jam here, why don't you share with folks what you're up to, here in 2024, at Refined Graffiti.
Yeah, so 2024 I think it's going to be an exciting year. I just finished up a big show in Miami with Oso. It was curated by a good friend of mine, Ariel. He owns a clothing company called Agni, and as well as, he runs this big studio out there. They've done an event with Kerwin Frost and McDonald's, so they made the whole building like a Big Mac meal for their collaboration with that artist. They've shown Basquiat stuff. They've done, they film movies in there. They have photo shoots in there. So just a really creative space. So it was cool to, show there and meet the creative people out in Miami. It was a big 30, 40 painting show. I did a bike installation. Now, working on a couple of other shows, trying to find people to connect with and kind of partner with and take this and, move it to Tampa, New York, Boston. I have a goal to show in Chicago this year as well. Don't know too many people out there, but I really like that city. Um, and then just do smaller events here on home turf in the Tampa and St. Petersburg area. Um, and maybe by the end of this year have a little standing gallery somewhere near me.
Nice. One thing that stuck out to me and sort of getting to know you through hearing you on the Repivot Project podcast and also through like our pre-podcast Q&A is sort of you made a comment in the pre-podcast kind of Q&A with me that like your following is a lot bigger than social media would suggest, which I imagine is true for a lot of artists, especially artists as they're like coming up and kind of blowing up. And I view you, and and it seems like a lot that I talk to that know you and view you, they view you as like this kind of like up and coming sort of like new age Banksy. And so I love for you to like share a bit of like your sort of like fusing and sort of your kind of transcending sort of traditional fine arts and sort of in graffiti. So talk about that a
Yeah,
little bit, but then talk about that through the context of like when you like to do that in an authentic way. Like yeah, like you can get your hustle on and grind on social bit because you have to play that game. But talk about the
yeah,
importance of like in real life, the IRL just showing up in the world. Like a good stand-up comedian, like a lot of artists, like you have to go on tour. You have to bring your art and you have to connect with people present like in the flesh. And so I think that
yeah.
and especially when you're trying to like bring some like different kind of at times disparate parts of the art community together.
Yeah, so I view refined graffiti as kind of a movement, and the quote behind it, here for a period of time to create something that will last forever, is kind of something that, I stay true to every day. So what inspires me is like the rock and roll artists of the 70s. And I read Jimi Hendrix biography when I was doing my Pigments of Sound series, which is all, inspired by them. And these dudes didn't have social media, and they just went out and they played shows, and they were traveling the country, and they were in recording studios in various places. And, they were making music and they were playing music, and people were connecting with them on that level. I love the tour posters that they put out. And, a tour poster would go up in the city not on Instagram. A tour poster would physically go up in the city, and people would get excited about it, and they would connect with people on a real level. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job of that over here on the East Coast. I think social media is great, but you see a painting on social media, and you look at it, oh, that's cool, but you can't like feel the energy that that painting's giving off. You can't really have a real life conversation with me about that painting. You can't have a moment like in your day with that painting like you would when you walk into a gallery or when you walk into a show, or when you walk into your friend's house and they have a picture of like they see your painting. My buddy was in San Diego one time and he walked into a house and someone had collected my work out there and he sent me a picture of it and he was like, "No way." And I was like, "Yeah,
Wow.
man. Like
Yeah.
we
That's
we're in,
cool.
we're in a bunch of different places." So
Yeah.
that's really important to me. You'll never catch me doing like the social media trend stuff with like the yellow words and all of that stuff.
Hmm.
Definitely have thought about it just to, really kickstart it. But then I've tried to record a couple of those videos and I'll watch it and I'm just like, this is just
Yeah.
not even close to me.
Doesn't feel
It's
right.
just not me. Um, so there's a give and take when it comes to social media. I feel like sometimes my brain's like, I got to do this, and then sometimes I'm like, I don't. It doesn't work. I don't even care. Like, let's just try to plan the next show. Um, and hopefully one day the social media and the in real life kind of things can meld
Yeah.
and come together, and I can do
Yeah.
more with social media.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm just totally riffing here, but like, I imagine it's difficult as an artist that's creating, at times one-on-ones, although the other day my wife and I bought some art from, Portermill Studios in Beverly.
I
It's,
don't, but I think
so you were kind of, it was like
Ryan
pre your
Elliot told
art.
me.
Okay, so it's like pre
Yeah,
your kind of like, which we'll unpack like kind of how you really became an artist, but not far from
yeah,
Endicott College where you went. There's this like live work like artist community, Portermill, uh, and then there's a brewery on the first floor. It used to be called Channel Marker. Now it's called Coastal Mass Brewing, and they like do a good job of showcasing art from the artists upstairs. And like my wife
yeah,
and I like bought a piece the other day, and it was like number 6 out of 100 of this like
yeah.
really cool like Cabot Theater like sort of canvas painting. And I imagine like whether you're creating a 101 or a 1 of 100 or whatever it is, like there's a certain element of like wanting to be careful about putting that online, but to the point about like showing up in the real world, like as you have been and continue to show up, like maybe your social media presence can be like people sharing. It could be more like the benefits and the outcomes that people get from experiencing a show or talking about what the art means. And from the marketer in me is like there's hopefully like as you're like continuing to ascend in your career and you have like you're signed right now, you have a group that's represented artists for a few decades like backing you. That's great. But as like you start to get some like professional team to support you, like maybe it's around taking the magic of in real life, putting that on, and then creating intrigue around, well, you want to really see and experience the art, check out the next show, or like
That's
hit me up.
genius.
Yeah, you like
That is
that?
genius. I love
Okay.
that. See, that's the thing. Like, I've talked to social media companies, and it's the
It's the
approach.
same
Like,
derivative shit,
it's the
right?
same. Like, I feel like I need someone who gets me and is going to be like, "We're going to do this," and I'll do that.
Yeah,
But I just feel like it's like you got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to do this, and I'm like, it just doesn't feel
and then look like
like
everyone else.
real. Yeah,
Well, yeah. Well, well, as one of our probably few action items we'll have from this, or fun threads to pull at. Maybe you and Ryan Curley and I can have a follow up discussion around that, because Ryan Curley, who's been a producer for Boston Speaks Up for man since like episode 50 or 60, so for like half of the damn show at this point for 3 years. He's the one who's like turned me on to you, and I know you two are like our pals, so
yeah,
we should chat. We should chat. Maybe there's a way we can kind of
100%,
help collab on that for sure.
hundred
Cool.
percent.
So we got to say hi to G there. So let like
Yeah.
introduce us to your assistant.
This is my studio assistant. he paints everything. He realistically paints everything, and I just take
Nice.
the credit for it.
So and
But
what's his full name? I know he goes by G.
full name is Gata, but he just goes by G.
Nice. And he's rescue.
He's a rescue German Shepherd, um, somehow purebred. I got lucky,
Yeah.
and he's never not next to me. So
Nice. That's
don't
cool.
break in my house.
Yeah, don't break. Yeah, yeah. You don't want to mess with G. And speak and
No.
let's talk a little bit about the art behind you. Right, we're like 10 minutes into to jamming here. If anyone's ends up
Yeah.
watching this on YouTube, they're gonna be like, "Oh, what's going on in the background?" Let's talk a little bit about these pieces.
Yeah. So this piece, it says hopeless. Um, inspired by uh, what Shepard Fairey did with Obama and how there was a lot of hope in the country at that time. Without taking a political stand and just talking to both parties, neither party seemed happy. So it's it seems hopeless, I guess. Both
Yep.
parties seem hopeless, just from the people that I talk to on a day, not even daily basis, but it seems to just come up in conversation everywhere you go now. This piece, Battle at the Nursing Home, they're both in their 80s. So, and
Yeah.
then, and then this piece, I'll pull this one out. It's not done yet, but you see. Rematch of the century. They have boxing gloves on. Sleepy Joe and Dirty Don. And
Nice.
yeah, I just feel like this upcoming election is like going to be a big part of American history, and I just feel like I need to, you know, take take almost take a stand on it where it's not sides and it's kind of just showing what's going on and like how
Yeah.
people feel.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about it in like on the Repivot Project podcast. You talked about like you're not trying to take a political stand, but you're trying to showcase like provide observations and do so in a way like even when it's not has like political figures like these do, but like any art, it's like oh, what's the meaning behind that? It's like well, like the best art, Mona Lisa. It's like a lot of different people's different interpretations. It's why it's great art, right? So to
Yeah,
political art that can just allow people to sort of like understand you do have a point of view, you do have a perspective, your observations certainly are seen through your lens, but like they're executed in such a way where it's like you could be on either side of the aisle, you could be a disillusioned sort of like um moderate in the middle, and you're still going to be able to resonate with the fact that like damn, at a time of transformation, AI, all this shit, and we got 80 year
yeah,
olds fight like that going for the office, and it's like, come on, like what are we doing here?
exactly.
Yeah,
It's just like I'm a very observant person, always have been my whole life. Like, even as a kid, just riding my bike around my town and fishing and going on hikes in the woods. Like, I feel like I always noticed, even if the smallest thing was out of place. So I'm always an observant person, always taking in what everyone says to me, like not taking it offensively, but actually listening, which people tend not to do nowadays, but like actually listening and giving that person a chance to tell
yeah,
me something without judging them. And I feel like it's allowed me to make art that says something, but can be viewed very differently through different people's eyes. And that's kind of,
right,
the goal of when I make art is I want my stuff to be viewed 100 different ways and spoken about in 5 different ways. And then, when someone asks me about it, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even see that.
yeah. Yeah, I love that, and you kind of just you scratched into one of the we'll get to it later, but the
Yeah.
Deirdre's answer when I had her on the podcast, she's like an OG guest. She was like first 20 guests or so,
Hmm.
and her challenge to listeners and the things she wants to see more in the world is just people be present with each other.
Yep.
It just always sticks with me because it's like it gets harder and harder. I run a business. I kind of run a few businesses. I got a lot going, but it's like being present with my two daughters. Being present with my wife. Being present with you right now. Like it's there's beauty. Like it's a beauty. Like my art is conversation. I think the beauty of life through my eyes lies in the art of conversation, and you can
Yeah.
only achieve or experience that beauty if you're fucking there. I'm
Yeah.
here with you right now. And to that point, like let's journey back. Like I want to be there with you, like back several years. Like,
Yeah.
like talk a bit about like, let's talk about like where you grew up too, because it sounds like Madison, Connecticut is a place I wouldn't have minded growing up in, like a little beach town in Connecticut, and sort of
Yeah.
just kind of cool community into sports. But like talk about that a little bit. Talk about the influence that your parents had on you.
Yeah. So grew up in Madison, Connecticut, super small, tight knit beach town. Growing up, get on your bike in the summers, you get on your bike in the morning and you're just gone. You got your fishing poles with you, your baseball glove, your lacrosse stick, a football, and your friends. You decide where you're going to meet up, and you get on your bikes and you go. Um, Beach bum for life, I would say. Like
Yeah.
always have to be by the beach. I was in Arizona like a little over a year ago, and
Hmm.
I was like anxious because I wasn't close to the beach. Kept
Yeah.
asking my dad. I kept asking my dad where the water was. Um,
Yeah.
and
My
Madison's just a
by the way,
super
what
tight knit community.
real quick on that. My
Yeah,
when I met my wife, like we were like going through the list, we literally had a conversation when we were dating early, first 6 months of
yeah,
relationship, where we both made it clear we would never not live within like a mile of the ocean. And
yes,
it was like, oh, I was like, oh, this is sweet. So like we moved to the West Coast, but we lived at Venice Beach, and then we moved back here and we
yeah,
moved to Beverly, and it's like, fun fact about the Northeast, you pay more and you get dinged on homeowners insurance when you live too close to the beach, but I don't give a shit. Like I'm like, I want to be
yeah,
able to walk to the beach. So it's there's something about the ocean and the being connected to something about water too, and movement in life. Water holds like, it holds history. It also sort of like, gives us life. Like it's just, there's something about natural water sources, but in particular like the
yeah,
ocean, that it's majestic, described as such for a reason. So I just want to connect with you deeply on
yeah.
that.
I'm surrounded
Yeah.
by water now. So I live on one of the barrier islands outside of Tampa. So I
Yeah, you just
got
moved down to
what?
Tampa. That's right.
Yeah, I got water a block left, and I got water 2 blocks right. So
Nice.
I got
That's
water
awesome.
everywhere. Um, yeah, I mean, Madison holds a really special place in my heart. Still, some of my best friends. My best friend is, he lives 15 minutes away from here now. But he's from Madison. I was just back in Madison. Really like family town, so I'm really tight with my family. That's where I learned how to cook, was with my family, which is another one of my passions and something that I've always done. My dad actually owns the Old Schoolhouse Deli in Madison, Connecticut. Best chicken cutlets on the shoreline, no doubt. Um, so,
Did you
kind of
get
grew up.
creative with the names at all? What's the name of the spot?
No, so the deli he bought has been there 100 years. So when
Cool.
he bought it, you legally are not allowed to change the name of it.
Because it's
And you
historical.
can't, it's historical, like the
Yeah.
menu is
Yeah.
numbered, like
Yeah.
you can't really change it. It was the
Oh
first
yeah.
schoolhouse in Madison. Um,
Cool.
so Madison is, one of those small towns in New England that has the houses with the plaques on it, built in 1745.
Yeah.
Um, so
Cool.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
just classic New England.
Yeah. I love it. It's like Beverly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
That's
very,
awesome.
very congruent to Beverly.
So it makes sense. Anyone who listens to the podcast who's been to or driven up it's the 127 between like Beverly and Rockport, you can't miss
Mhm.
Endicott College. It's a beautiful campus. It overlooks the ocean. So no spoiler alert, like that's where you went to school. But
Yeah.
was it a bunch of up against a few other schools that were near the ocean, or was it like Endicott is my jam?
Um, it was straight lacrosse decision, to be honest, but it was up against a couple other schools. I did look at a couple schools, or at least talk to a couple schools, not so much visit them. When I visited Endicott, one, the campus is beautiful. Two, the water was right there.
Mm-hmm.
They pitch you on being able to go to the beach across the street. And then Coach Quirk is just, such a good guy. So when I sat down with Coach Quirk, I remember getting in the car with my dad to go home, and I just told him, I was like, I'm going there. He's like, no, we got to look at other schools, yada, yada, yada. I
Yeah,
was like, I already told Coach Quirk I'm coming, so I'm
yeah.
going.
I'm
And
committed. I'm
that
a
was
man of
it.
my word.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was it.
that's awesome. And then at that point, it was. 20 when you committed there, was it like 2013?
Yeah, so Division three,
2012?
it's like it's not like I committed. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you tell them I'm coming. I guess
yeah,
now they would consider it committed, but it's like I'm
yeah,
coming, and then and coach is like, okay, you're gonna we'll help you
yeah,
out with the
yeah,
application process and stuff, and then
yeah,
you kind of get
yeah,
your acceptance letter, I guess,
right,
around some of the first people that get it.
yeah,
So my junior year of high school, it was like midway through my junior year, I told Coach Quirk that Endicott was the place where I wanted to be.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I stayed in really close contact with him through that year and a half and ended up at Endicott.
Nice. What year did you start at Endicott?
So graduated high school in 2013. So started
Fall
Endicott
2013.
2013.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
just
That's what I figured
2017.
because I know you graduated at Endicott 2017. I'm curious
Yeah.
because as someone who I moved to Beverly in 2018, well, I moved back from LA to Boston in 2018. I bought in Beverly in 2019. So year before the pandemic, I started doing some research and I'm like, oh, the Engel Center for Entrepreneurship, like at Endicott College, like beautiful campus. Didn't know anyone at Endicott. Engel Center for Entrepreneurship sounded really intriguing. Helping provide entrepreneurship like kind of horizontally through the university.
Yeah.
Um, and I like literally walked up to the Engel Center. Like I showed up on campus. Like I just like drove to the campus and like parked
Yep.
somewhere random. And then I like walked into the Engel Center and I was just like, does anyone know Deirdre Sartorelli? And like that,
Yeah.
and then they pointed and I like found her and that's how I met Deirdre. And then a few
Yeah.
weeks later I had her on this podcast. And then next year I was like the EIR. And then, the shit hit the fan with the pandemic. So, but I had discovered like, oh wow, this is sort of like Babson and Northeast, the co-op style in Northeastern and sort of like
Yeah.
the entrepreneurship, business kind of like MBA style education as an undergrad, like Babson. This has got like this scratches a lot of itches for me. I always, have enjoyed getting involved and kind of teaching and working with young people and young entrepreneurs. So I'm just curious, like, because I feel like you were more an artist first and then more an entrepreneur first and then became an artist. Is that fair? And then
Yeah. Super fair.
is that why you went? Is that partly why you were like excited about Endicott and like where was that entrepreneurship school, if at all, like, for those 4 years you were on campus?
So it took me a little while to like grow up, if I'm being
It takes us
honest. I
all. It
entered,
takes us all.
yeah, I entered Endicott, liberal studies major, no idea what I wanted to do. Um, so Endicott looked a lot different when I was there. The the Angle Center, like the business building wasn't as massive as it was. Like when I showed up to Endicott to give my speech last October, I was baffled. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe what
Just
it
in the
looked like.
last 2 years, what's been built. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an insane campus. It's a beautiful school. Like they're killing it over there. I think it was going into my halfway through my sophomore year. I went into business marketing. And then my junior year, I started a clothing company. Um, and Endicott was just really supportive of 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 that journey in general. And they allowed me to kind of do my own thing and really make my own mistakes. And, they didn't force me into working a 9 to 5 job for my internship. They allowed me to do my internship as my own my
Yeah.
own entity. They allowed me to write a business plan. And I still reference the business plan. Like I still have the 50-page business plan that I wrote at Endicott, and I'm getting ready to release a new clothing company somewhere this year, beginning of next year. So, when I'm putting together my plans for this new clothing company, I'm still referencing this 50-page business plan that my dad had to help me out with because I was way over my head
Yeah.
while I was graduating from Endicott. My dad's an entrepreneur. His dad was an entrepreneur. So just in my blood. And then, it kind of, I guess I took my entrepreneurship in a little bit of a different way, kind of applying it to the art industry. And I don't ever let my business brain get in the way of my creative brain. They're two very, very separate people. Like if I pick a day and I'm painting, I'm painting. If I pick a day and I'm marketing, I'm marketing. So you'll never see me paint something because I think it'll sell. I just don't believe in that. I've seen a
Mhm.
lot of art kind of go in that direction. And you get a lot of art that looks similar, and that's not really the point of making art. The point of making art is to make your own and make what's in your brain. So I really do keep them separate, and I don't even really think people know that I have my business background as much as I do. I think it's the art is always first, and the business is always kind of just the behind the scenes, just lucky enough to have been schooled in it, lucky enough to have been educated in it, and why not apply it to something that I love?
Yeah. Was there a level of in the clothing company you started, like junior, senior year at Endicott, was there a level of like art or authentic kind of like logos or imagery? Like what was there an art there was an artistic component, I imagine, to that
Yeah,
company?
it was basically, all graphics on t-shirts and
Hmm.
hoodies and all of that stuff. Um, I learned Photoshop and Illustrator because I had to. And then I fell in
Yeah.
love with Photoshop and Illustrator. And I was like, I'm never hiring a graphic designer. I love doing this. I'm only working
Yeah.
with people that I care about. One of my good friends, Daniela, she's a tattoo artist now, amazing tattoo artist. But I met her
Nice.
10 years ago because we collaborated on a shirt for Washed. Um, and that's kind of where I think I got my art kick from, and my style is derivative from like those times learning on Photoshop and Illustrator because, the layering and the way I see things is very, very colorful and like in layers. That's why my paintings look the way they look, is because I guess my schooling was Photoshop and Illustrator when it comes to art, where, a classical artist will get trained in school with a paintbrush. I was training
Hmm.
my like artistic brain on Photoshop and Illustrator before I even knew that I was going to become an artist. Um, that's where I learned branding.
Yep.
I made the logo, changed the logo 100 times, always was thinking
Hmm.
about branding. And that it's just something that, I fell in love with without even realizing it. And now you look back 8 years later, and I'm now realizing like, oh, all this happened by accident, but it all goes back to this like
Yeah.
very small thing that I did.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a kind of when you look in the rear view and like I just turned 39. I'm like reflecting on I was reflecting on my birthday, get out my journal, and when you reflect and get kind of when you get a little retrospective and then you get a little introspective and you start going and I go through this whole process and I'm always sort of like I always appreciate the serendipity of life. It's like, oh, this thing happened and that person can, and this like it's like somehow it just all, if you stay in your flow, we say that a lot of value creation labs. We say like my creative director, because I always surround I'm not I'm like a director. I have like all these ideas. I surround myself with people that
Yeah,
can really make them happen. My creative director did a drop recently, and we did like these new like VCL notebooks,
yeah,
and with he created these. He's always doing that one little enhancement to surprise people, and it was like almost looked like a little business card, and all it said on it had the little like VCL swoosh, and in the middle it just said "Stay in the flow," and I was like,
yeah,
fuck, I love that. It's like, but when you stay in
yeah,
the flow, you stay in your flow. I'm like, that's gonna be what we put on our hats, like.
yeah,
Maybe we. By the way, I actually didn't even think that we should collab on like some VCL swag because I don't ever want to just like I want to like work with artists on drops like when NFTs were popping off, like the part of NFTs I really appreciated was like loyalty programs and like how it could
yeah,
apply to like newsletters where it's like if you're a loyal subscriber to this newsletter, like tune in because we're going to do these limited drops, and when you read the newsletter, like there's going to be 10 stay in the flow hats, produced from the artist
yeah,
Kyle Wallack, and if first 10 to respond to the new, get ready because in one of the next newsletters we're going to it's like first 10 are going to you get a free hat, you get a free
Yeah.
one of 10, like stuff like that. I think is cool ways for, tech and art to kind of come together, which is a topic at some point I wanted to talk to, and now I'm just bringing talk to you about. Now I'm just bringing
Yeah.
it up, but like I think that there's really interesting ways. I get really excited when I see artists like yourself that compartmentalize their brain well. Like I really like that you were talking about sort of like if you're doing marketing one day, you're doing marketing. If you're doing art, you're doing art, and you're not doing art for the purpose of commercialization. You're just being present, like in the creation of a one of one. And then when
Yeah.
you're doing business, and I think that's really special. And I think what's missing in like the world is more like appropriate layering and like the intersectionality between like business and entrepreneurship and art. And you're like a great like microcosm, like you're an example of like the promise of those worlds being closer together. Like, and I'll to put an end cap
Yeah.
on that. Like, I look at Boston, I look at, we just did this report up here on artificial intelligence, and there's all these, billions of dollars poured into companies in
Yeah.
Boston that have all these ties to AI, and I'll be honest, like they're fucking boring, like difficult companies to describe to like the average person.
Yeah.
And I'm always dumbfounded at like the lack of like boldness from like businesses in Boston that do these like really important but like technical, difficult to describe things, to not take a leap of faith and fucking partner with like artists and like just try to show up and like show and impact people and impress upon their eyeballs with something that is a little bit more accessible, digestible, open, and give artists the opportunity to like, be at the top of their funnel, like introducing them to concepts, ideas. Who knows? Like I'm off on a
Yeah.
big tangent, but even and then like and then I'll throw one more thing at you. Like even with this, like I love your thoughts on like AI. It seems like you've spun your head on the dial a little bit from hearing some good people kind of talk about how it can be useful for art and feeding language learning models. We asked AI our reports on AI. So our creative team, like we asked AI, we used a couple different tools, like how would AI represent itself? We come up with some thoughtful prompts, and we looked at like how would AI design visually and represent a large language learning model or a big data, etc. And then we laid that out as design inspiration to then go and do
Yep.
then I'll go and create what eventually became our visual and verbal identity for this sort of one of one report, right? And there's all these
Yeah.
ways that it can be a tool. So I just threw a bunch at you there, but kind of play tug it whatever you
Yeah.
want. Yeah.
So first I want to touch on the NFT thing and what
Yeah.
NFTs, I think, how I want to take what NFTs did and apply it to real life.
Great.
Um,
Yeah.
I really agree with you on the loyalty programs and all of that stuff with the NFTs. So, and
Cool.
like we touched on in the beginning of the podcast, I'm all about like print still and like in
Yeah.
real life stuff. So I
Yeah.
would like to apply, and this is I have all these things for future endeavors because I am only one person and like I do
Yeah.
need to produce art and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that's what I'm focused on, but I want to have some type of loyalty program for everyone that purchases a one of one piece of my art where I want it to be either 3 times a year or 2 times a year where it's a physical like signed magazine. I don't care
Yeah.
you know, in 10 years if I have to sign 1,000 magazines. I don't care. I
Yeah.
want a printed magazine that's going to be on someone's coffee table that I invest in, I make nice. It has a hardcover, and that's something that, is my gift to the people that are purchasing my art.
It's great.
I also want to have a loyalty program where at my shows, if you're one of my loyal collectors, and I have a show in New York and you're interested in a couple pieces, I want to bring you out to that show and
Hmm.
I want to really take care of my customers, and, kind of almost create a little like community. And that's kind of why I've pivoted. There's still some galleries that I'm very appreciative that represent my stuff. Really appreciative of Quidley and Co. And in talks with a couple others. Um, but I've kind of wanted to pivot and do my own shows just so that I can start creating this community in hopes
Hmm.
that one day it's its own entity. I have a name for what I want to call my art collective. Um,
Okay.
and
Is it a name
I'll
you want
tell
to
you
share at this
I'll
time?
tell you
Yeah.
the name. I'll tell you the name, not on
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
podcast, because
Okay.
I think you'll connect with it.
Cool.
And then about AI, I think AI is, like you said, really good for inspiration. Um, what I don't like is how companies are eliminating, you know, there's going to have to be a choice companies are going to make. They're either going to be an AI company or they're going to be a company that, a human company, let's call it.
Hmm.
Some companies are going to openly say we're doing all our marketing through AI, all our marketing materials made through AI, and they're going to hold that stand. Some companies are going to be like, we're not going to use any AI. We're all going to use, all our stuff is going to be based on humans. And I'm more talking about like visually how companies are
Hmm.
marketing, the
Hmm.
way the marketing of companies are going to change, the way the art's going to change. But you said you used AI for inspiration. There's always the it factor. There always has to be that variable. That variable could be three people. That variable could be your creative director who just thinks a little bit differently and it's going to take what AI gives them. It's going to give them a brain blast and they're going to run with it in a direction that maybe they wouldn't have thought of without the inspiration from AI. So I'm not a hater, but I think that we need to take less of a stand and not be like,
Hmm.
we're only an AI company. We're only a company that has human graphic designers or human ideas. I think if we can become one and we can use AI to, put our thoughts down and allow AI to give us our thoughts in maybe a way that we can't. If we have ADHD or we have something,
Just hadn't yet considered. Yeah,
yeah, and AI
and
can give
that's
us something that can make sense to us, and then we can read it, and then it will bring us down a whole nother path. And
mhm.
I think it's going to be cool to see, where it goes. I think people that use it for inspiration are going to be really pleased with it. And then I think people that are using AI just, as an entity, as a piece of their team, they're going to look just like every other team that uses AI for their team.
Yeah, that's great. You would so we were and we ended up I ended up sharing a bit with folks how I was going to be talking with you this week. So last Tuesday, so we did this report. We've kind of taken it on the road because I'm big like on showing up in the world, like showing up in the world
Yeah,
IRL. The simplest way I can describe like the way I approach marketing, it's like hero hub helper. Like this is a hero. This is your hero. That's your asset. That's your baby. And then you put that behind the wall. On your hub. Our digital experience got some cool motion graphics. We got an AI mascot that we fed the brain. The brain of our
yep,
AI mascot is Cosmo. It's just VCL. It's our website. It's our work showcase, and it's the AI report. Don't ask
yeah,
about anything else, but ask it anything about us. Ask about the report. It will let you know. And then helper is sort of like, how do you sort of create and partner with the world outside of your of VCL of outside of my company, outside of off my
yeah.
website? How do I partner with people and show up outside in the world, like sharing, expressing, etc. And that's one part. Like we using Riverside FM, like it's how we record this podcast. Everyone we interviewed for that report, great. Let's create little micro assets and give co-branded assets to everyone. Hey, everyone have a little mini go-to-market, share with the world, market, have all this helper activation, kind of drive them all to the hub to download that hero asset. Great. But also
Yeah.
like, let's go show up in the real world and let's see what happens. And so we had like an event in Boston that Fidelity helped underwrite, which I'm super grateful for. And we had like 100 plus people show up. It was this dope spot called 100 High Street. It's this cool co-op where they're helping all these like small like entrepreneurs that have different like food businesses and beverage
Yeah.
businesses. And they actually just took it over and like everyone's like, this is like the coolest. There's AI events everywhere in Boston. Like this is like the best AI event. We've been going to a ton of AI events. This is great. And then we took it to Endicott and then we kind of spun it a little bit and it was sort of like AI and like career success.
Yeah.
And it was I don't know if he was around back then, but there's a professor Alan Glass who Ryan Curley knows really well, and myself, and then the analyst Joe Maglita, who is the lead writer on this report. And we talked a lot about like where the trend is going is like there are some low level like jobs that are very like simple task oriented, that just, it's not so about the jobs, it's just the roles and responsibilities can be taken care of by AI.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, there's jobs popping up that are like AI prompt engineers.
Yeah.
Like, are you good at getting value out of AI? Like, I like all the time, like how how you're seeing it, how we're aligned on it is how I use it, which is like for inspiration. It's like my prompts for AI are like paragraphs. I like wax poetry. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is happening. These confluence of trends are happening. And I hypothesize blah, 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 blah. And what I'm wondering is like, how else should I be thinking about like, this is sort of like one of the obvious sort of like paths to just showing up differently in response to this confluence of trends. And then like AI will just like, and then chat GPT in this case that I was using on this week will just
Yeah.
like give me like 4, 6, 10 new, like pathways or things to consider on my sort of like thought journey that I'm on, trying to sort of like reach a reach a decision or reach or sort of like get the right appropriate inspiration to like then go wax poetry. So I did that. I went through that exercise. I used
Yeah.
chat GPT for like an hour, and then I went for an hour and I'm like, and I wrote like I waxed some poetry and I sent it to a few of my partners. Like, that's fucking awesome. I'm like, yeah. And like, my research assistant on this was ChatGPT. And sort of
Yeah.
a lot of the future roles, I think every company, most companies can find like aspects of probably AI that can help them, and maybe will be some outliers, but it's more like as a tool. It's not, they don't necessarily have
Yeah.
to, AI shouldn't sit as a in place of a human at the table, but it's like everyone has a belt and we all have tools we go to work with every day. And it's like, depending on the business, like there's an AI tool or two in your tool belt, in your toolkit. And it's just
Yeah. Well,
something
it's
that you
like
could help, that
marketing
helps you
too.
along the way. Yeah.
It's like everyone who does marketing has a pixel.
Yep.
The smarter you make your AI robot, the better it knows you, the better it can be the
Yep.
better asset it can be for your company. The more you
Yep.
feed your pixel in marketing, the bigger asset your pixel becomes. I view AI as the same thing. The better AI gets to know you, gets to know your company, the more you feed it, it just becomes another asset to your company. It's not this end all be all thing that's going to get this brain and pop out of the computer and iRobot and kill us all. No,
And
it's
take over the
it's
world.
it's just,
Right.
yeah, it's just an asset. But I also view, like you said, like AI engineers. There's going to be like good things that come from this. There's going to be college degrees that are teaching people how to properly feed AI from a company standpoint in order to get the best outcome from it. And we've kind of seen AI for so long with the customer service online, and like you're not talking to someone when you're typing, "Hey, this is Clara from Apple." It's not actually Clara from Apple.
Right.
It's a computer at Apple that's going to help you complete the task of how do I update my phone or something like that. So we've seen it for a long time, but I just feel like it hasn't been in the forefront. I'll mess with AI. I mess with DaVinci a little bit, which is like AI
Mm-hmm.
art, and I just kind of I don't use it as like I don't use any of the things, but I just kind of like track it and see how it's doing. AI doesn't do well with hands. So if you see art and there's only four fingers, it's
Mm-hmm.
probably generated by AI. So there are little aspects of AI where you can tell, you know, what's authentic and what is AI, but that's also going to separate people in the real world, because people that are using AI as an asset and that are bouncing their that are, like you said, that
Mm-hmm.
are helping AIs helping them with their train of thought. We're going to see a lot of creative stuff happen in business. We're going to see a lot of creative stuff happen in art. We're going to just see a lot of cool stuff happen. People
Yeah.
that are solely using AI and not using it for inspiration, it's going to look like everyone else
Yeah.
that is just using AI.
Yep. Agreed. I got a creative idea to throw at you, and then I want to talk about that first time you picked up an easel.
Okay.
So the creative idea is, we're gonna have to take this offline because now my brain's gone off on a longer tangent where I'm like in
Yeah.
a, I don't know if you use Miro or Mural. We use Mural, but like I'm in a digital whiteboard right now with you and Curly already going through this. But I love the idea. Like, so we've been doing these VCL drops where like occasionally we'll just like snail mail will show up to, all the different consultants, contributors at VCL, whether designers, copywriters, analysts, researchers. And then like the last one, it's like, it was a notebook. It was like a thoughtful notebook with our logo on it and like really, really like nice pens and the little stay in the flow thing. Um, I just could like the overwhelming like appreciation for that. Like I love it too. Like something showing up in the mail. It's like kind of like meeting people IRL. So I'm really like where I'd like to see the curve go, which is like our newsletter. And I think it's like a proof of concept for like what could be like a kind of like a new wave of like how to approach newsletters in general. It's like maybe we collab. It's like on a and maybe it's tied to Boston, or maybe it's tied, or maybe it's like maybe we commit, maybe do a special limited series on sort of the inspiration maybe we give you is a little bit of, hey, it's so tech and art, how's it all fit together, and you do your thing, but then we have
Yeah,
some like limited edition, like ones of a small number for our newsletter subscribers. We let them know like, hey, these drops are coming, just keep an eye out, because it's in a certain newsletter, it's gonna be like golden tickets. Like if you see it, click, first 10 get one, boom, snail mail, it shows up for you. I'd be totally
yeah.
like, that's the kind of thing I'd be down to underwrite, where it's
I'm
like, and I can
super
also
down.
see, I think it'd be really cool. And I also just think it would just push the envelope on like, the collaboration between like, tech consulting and artists, but also like
Yeah.
how to do newsletters and how to do loyalty programs. And it could be a way to like, and like rising tide lifts all boats. Like, that could be a cool way for us to kind of like, I don't know, show up in the world kind of in a
Yeah.
more like interesting and complex way. So feel free to respond to that, and then we can talk about that easel.
Yeah, so I love that. One of my friends, his name's Randy Ostrow. He is a big handwritten note guy. And
Love it.
I've done since I've met him, I've done some handwritten notes, and people's responses to a handwritten note is, it's insane. I would have never done it if I didn't meet Randy and he hadn't sent me a handwritten note when I first met him, and I was like, this is really cool. And he's really honest in the note, and it's from the heart. And I have every note that he's ever sent me still to this day. I keep every single note that he's ever sent me, and that's what he does, and he gets great response for it. And I remember sitting down, first time I wrote a handwritten note, I'm like, I'm like trying to be all proper and stuff. And he's like, that no, he's like, just say exactly what you want to say. And so I really like your idea because it kind of takes that to another level.
Cool. You just reminded me of so every morning, my wife and we have two daughters. One's in first grade, one's 14 months. And so our first grader, we just switch off every other day, like who's kind of like taking our first grader to school. And if you're taking the first grader to school, it's your turn to write a note. And
Yeah.
so every morning we write a handwritten note, and every other day it's a mommy day or daddy day, and we put it in her lunchbox.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just like, I love where you're going with the handwritten note stuff too, where it's really nice. And actually my creative director who does the drops, like it was my birthday, he sent me a book and he sent me a handwritten note. And it's just like,
Yep.
it's just really, it's really thoughtful. It's a way to connect. And I think you can combine the two, right? The delivery mechanism that is like social media or a newsletter, like digitally, is useful to going one to many, but then like then this like sort of like limited edition kind of more qualitative, like snail mail drop of a physical item, of a handwritten note, those two can coexist. And
Yes.
that's like and so that's a future that I want to like we'll have to pursue together in a future brainstorm.
I'm 100% down.
Cool. So talk about the first time, like what was going on in your life that first time you eyeballed that easel, and you really
Mhm.
made that turn towards the refined, what is now refined graffiti.
Yeah. So 20, I think 2017, 2018, I had cancer of my parotid gland, which is in your head. It's like an avocado sized gland in your head. Couple surgeries later, first surgery exploratory, they found cancer. And this is after being in and out of the doctors for like a year. getting
Mhm.
getting it tested for cancer and stuff. Got sketchy after a year. Exploratory surgery. They found it was cancer. My AirPod just fell out. And then so I had to go in for a second surgery. Second surgery was 12 hours. They opened me up from like the top of my ear down to the bottom of my neck. Super extensive surgery. Doctors informed me that, gonna have migraines, gonna be a long recovery, essentially. Um, couldn't really use the computer to design clothes anymore because the Blu-rays would make me throw up, give me migraines, all, you know, things that would come with a major concussion. So, it was symptoms of a really bad concussion. And then as well as like, you can't go upstairs. You can't really like sit up fast. You take your time when you wake up in the morning.
Mhm.
And even to this
And you
day,
were
I have
living in
like,
Manhattan, right? You were living
yeah,
in New
I was in
York.
New York.
And did you have
Even
an
to this,
apartment that
I
did
was
you have
one
an
floor
apartment
up,
upstairs?
so I got lucky.
Okay. Yeah.
I was in a one stair walk up, but I didn't leave my apartment. So a couple days after surgery, I found my parents were like, "Do not go back to the city. What are you doing?" I was like, "I got to go back to the city. I want to work
Hmm.
on it." I was like, "I want to work. I can't just sit here." Um, and I think I would have lost my mind if I didn't find this easel. But walking into my apartment building, I found an easel in the garbage, brought the easel up to my apartment, had my buddy bring me some paint and like some canvases, and then I started painting. The easel, might have sat there for a day or two with the paint. And I still have the first robot, and I just found a picture of me painting it the other day. But I painted this background that's like red with like almost blue triangle, like abstract. And then I remember painting like a square in the kind of toward the top, and then it just turned into a robot.
Mm.
I loved the process of it,
That's
and
cool.
it
So
was
you were
kind
kind
of,
of painting, and
yeah,
then all of a sudden a robot revealed itself,
yeah.
right? It's like it's almost like it wasn't like you were painting a robot. Is you were painting, and then all of a sudden it's like a robot has revealed itself, and
Yeah.
it's
And
just
I
it
had,
just came. Yeah.
yeah, it just came. I had like, I think it was like 380 stitches on the outside of my face, and then it was like
Wow.
another somewhere around there on like the actual gland. They cut out 50% of the gland. Um, I have no nerves on this side of my face or anything. Like I cannot feel this. Or like when you pinch my ear, like I can't feel it. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, I just fell in love with the process. Eventually my apartment was a studio. Um, and I just painted every day. Then I started to, have robots like pulling wires out of the head because I had like this drainage tube that was clipped to my shirt. It was so disgusting. Yeah, I was like, I literally had like a wire. And when I was in the hospital, you're like wires everywhere because,
Yeah.
and doctors told me when you're under, like they have to pull back your nerves and shock them. So there was just like a lot of congruency with like the wires in the robot and kind of what I experienced. Um, if you look at my art from the time that I was recovering from
Hmm.
cancer and from the surgery, the the looks on the robots' faces, I did some Pooh Bears. I did this thing called Dead Mafia, which I'm actually I just found some pictures of like those characters the other day, and I'm gonna kind of repurpose those characters and bring them back. One was like this alien guy. My dad's friend has one, and it's like this alien guy with like gills on the side almost, and he's like giving the middle finger. And my dad's best friend is like, "I love that." My dad's like, "You can take it because I don't like the middle finger," and he got it framed and stuff. There's another dead mafia character that is like this alien with a fishbowl on his head, and the fishbowl is like has a fish in it. There's another one with a fishbowl with its brain floating in it. But all those characters had like a scar on the left side of their face, which represented,
Mm.
my
Okay.
surgery.
Hmm.
Yeah, all the characters look sad. Um, even Dean Kushner at Endicott,
Yeah.
he was checking out my work, and he was like, "Your robots from when you were sick look sad, and they almost don't look confused, and they almost look like defeated." Where I painted a robot for Endicott while I was there, and he was like, "And this robot almost looks like a superhero with its chest out and stuff." So I guess like my robots have a lot of emotion, and they're kind of a representation of me. And the robots always had flowers in their hands, broken flowers. It was always like a couple broken flowers with one flower sticking straight up to represent, you know, kind of beauty in the broken flowers. And yeah, that was just kind of how I spent my year and a half, was painting robots and Pooh Bears. And, I did really well online at the time. And then I had my, Madison had like this kind of art fair on the town green, and I sold some of my first paintings. They're probably like this big for
Mhm.
$40, um, which is just so funny to think back. And
Yeah.
I wish I didn't sell them, but that was the
Yeah.
coolest feeling in the world was, oh, you guys actually want to buy this? They're like,
Hmm.
yeah, how much? I'm like, I don't know, $40. They're like, okay. And
What would you sell them for now? I mean, those you maybe you wouldn't even sell, but if you were to sell them, what would you sell them for now?
um, I don't even think I would paint that small,
Yeah.
honestly. I've been I've been revisiting, and after the podcast, I'll send you some
Yeah.
pictures of my
Okay.
first pieces. Here, maybe I can show. I have a
Yeah.
content folder
Yeah.
on my phone. So let me just pull this up, and I haven't put these out online, but okay. So like
Okay.
that's one
Yeah.
of them.
That's dope.
Um, that's one of them.
Oh wow.
Um, and then this was one of them. There was like a poem on the barrel of this gun. So, and that's just what I found. And
A
then here's
a
the first
poem
robot.
a poem you
I
wrote.
forget what it says. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the
Yeah.
first robot.
Oh wow. And then I can see on
And you can see all the
the
little,
left
like,
side.
the little
Yeah.
ones on the left side.
On the left side. Yeah.
So,
And so
and
that's
that,
all you have of them
that
now,
robot
like
took me
is those
3 or 4 weeks.
pictures.
Yeah. And that's all I have is those
Wow.
pictures. And, I didn't know where
Wow.
this was going to go. I didn't, if I knew where this was going to go, those would be near and dear to my heart. But
Those folks, whether they're collectors or not, they are now.
yeah,
Real like
there.
if you think like I don't know if you've ever thought of that, like in the future you're doing like something, coming home party, even if it's in Madison, you're doing your own show. You could do like a call to the community. Hey, anyone, has or has seen these info, like just if you want to come, for a period, just come, participate in the show. They're still yours, but
Yeah, just a
but do
not
you
for
want to come
sale
like
wall.
yeah, not yeah, do you want to come be a part of this? There might be
Yeah.
some cool ways you can get them to come out of the woodwork.
I definitely am planning to do something partnering with some type of because my dad's really, connected with the food industry in Connecticut.
Yeah,
So, I definitely want to do something in Madison that's kind of a show like that this summer.
yeah.
And
Oh,
just,
cool. All right.
you know, that's one
I'll
of
take a
the
drive. I'll take a drive to Madison. You have to
you
keep me
definitely
posted on
should.
that.
A
Yeah.
hundred percent. And that'll just be a cool show. I'm gonna do like special pricing at that show. It's gonna be kind of like Madison was so supportive in the beginning of my career, and it's I just want to almost have a show that's like thank you
Yeah.
so
Hell
much.
yeah.
You know?
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, you always, it's good. It's the way you've spoken about the Madison community and like those roots and the, best bud that's down in the Tampa area with you now. Like,
Yeah,
it's great it's cool to kind of go back there and like, stay present with where you came from as you continue to
yeah,
ascend in life.
yeah. And I'm really close with like even my parents' friends. I was just home, and they're like, oh, they're texting me, "Come, I'm coming over to say hi," and I'm like, awesome.
Yeah.
So I have like
Yeah.
my own relationship with a lot of different people in Madison, and it's just I love it there.
Nice. So like, so that I mean that's wild. Like year and a half was it? So it was like a year and a half of more or less just in your apartment painting, not really like limited device time.
Yeah,
Like how limited
and
was your device time? That must have been.
it was pretty
Can
limited. I was a
did you
shit
get like a
show. Like
landline to call people? Like what or like could you just talk on the phone but not look at it? Like
so
were you
my
do you
best
talk
friend
to
would just
people a
show
lot or
up.
yeah
Like
yeah
my friends would just show up. It wasn't like everyone everyone. So it's funny. Everyone that I was close with in New York, my friend Evan was, I'm very appreciative of him. He helped me out a lot during this time. He's a great photographer, and we just always have been really close friends to this day. Still really close friends. He just show up with some food. At least once a day, I knew that Evan was coming by, which was
Hmm.
awesome.
And
And then
that's
I
that's
had another
amazing.
friend who lived down the street from Madison, and he
Hmm.
would show up. My parents would show up. I was just people would show up, but I wasn't doing much. I was painting.
Hmm.
I would get out to go to the art store. I looked so crazy with like the
Yeah.
stitches and the tube and stuff, and it was like
Yeah.
I almost felt
Is it?
bad. Like I was like, I see a little kid. I look scary to a little
All
kid. Like
right.
I was scary.
For you, going back and looking at pictures, is it hard for you to look at those pictures?
I
Or
don't have a
is it like
sing.
an appreciate you don't
I
even have
don't
one?
have a
Like
single picture. My phone got somehow in the last 6 years. That period of time, I have 14,000 pictures on my phone. But
yeah,
that year recovery, I don't have a
yeah,
picture. It's so
that's
weird.
wild.
It's almost as if like if you were around, kind of, you know.
Hmm.
Um, I think the only picture, and I'm not in contact anymore, would be like one of my ex-girlfriends from the time probably has a picture of just the cut. And I think that's like the only actual picture that would that is there. But I've asked years later, hey, can you please send me that picture? I've received that picture, saved it, and it still gets deleted off my phone somehow. And during that time, Snapchat was kind of still going on. I don't
Yeah,
use Snapchat anymore. There's like a
yeah,
year and a half gap on my Snapchat memories. And like,
yeah,
it's so weird. I have memories of like leading up to that point. Like, I have memories of my dad and I in the hospital when I would get like a needle, like, and they would suck out the fluid. And it's like me in like a hospital gown, like spinning in a chair. And my dad's like,
yeah,
stop doing that. What are you doing? But I
yeah,
have no actual photos of that time. My parents
that's
don't have any
wild.
photos. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, it's not the first instinct in that situation to like, let's get a picture of this, but it's crazy
Yeah.
that you don't have one. But in some ways, like, that's just part of the story. It's just
Yeah.
like a really interesting, unique variable about it. So like coming out of that, like I mean, what is that? It's interesting. Like I imagine I'm trying to find like the equivalent to like that experience and how profound it is on you. Like your brain's developing and kind of reaching its kind of, it's like you're 23, like you're
Yeah.
kind of like who you're going to be, and and then all of a sudden you're like alone in your own thoughts for
Yeah.
like a couple of years. Like
Yeah. And then
yeah,
COVID.
what was that like? And it was, yeah, and then it was COVID. So it was like, so you could, yeah, and you couldn't be as connected as you would have
Yeah, I
been
got
like
like a
on a
solid
computer.
year. I got like before COVID, let's call it, I just turned 30 actually, Sunday. So like, and my buddy asked me yesterday, he's like, how do you feel about turning 30? I'm like, dude, get me the hell out of my 20s. He's like, I was like, cancer, COVID. Then when I first moved to Florida, I was riding my bike. I got hit by a car. I got two
Oh
torn
no.
discs in my, yeah, I was riding my bike to the beach with my dad, and this lady was texting and she drilled me. Um, and then we had this accident happen after my show in Miami. I got a concussion. I broke my left hand, and that was I was like, dude, get me the hell out of my 20s, please, and thank you. Like couldn't be more excited to not have to deal with this anymore. Um, but yeah, so I was locked in for a solid year and a half, really not in the world. And then, by the time I turned 25, I was starting to show in New York and I was feeling somewhat normal. I still like I would have days where I couldn't move, and that's still prevalent today. Like I just flew. Sometimes when I fly, the change in pressure like messes my head up. Um, so, I had a solid year, like year and a half, 2 years of really great movement in New York City. And then COVID hits and everything stops. No one's buying art during COVID. Like,
Yeah.
come on. That
Yeah.
wasn't the investment, but I've kept painting. And, I think all of the trials and tribulations that I was thrown from the time I graduated college. We talk about cancer, we talk about COVID, getting hit by a car. Then, a month and a half ago, getting a concussion, breaking my hand, like all of these things that have happened pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, and now we're on the other side of it, on the other side of COVID, have just made me into the person that I am. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, it took me a long time to grow up. I've always been a person that learned from my mistakes, but I always had to make big mistakes to learn. Um, so I
Yeah.
think it's changed me a lot for the better. It's made me very comfortable with who I am. It's made me very confident in what I'm doing. And anything that's worth doing is never going to be easy. Like you have kids, it's not easy, but it's worth it.
No.
Like it's
Hmm.
it's it's really relatable, and I think that everyone deals with trauma in their own way, but in my mind, it's just relatable to anyone who's doing something that they care about. They're going through something that people don't understand because they're not there. Um,
Hmm.
so that was just kind of my journey in order to make me the person, the artist that I am today, that I will be. That's where my quote comes from because, almost went down. That's where my quote comes from. That's where like my appreciation of the presence comes from. It's where everything started. And I don't know
Yeah.
where I would be without it. So I'm appreciative of those times. And I think about them often, not in a negative way, just but in a way where it's like I look at, my paintings now and I'm like, damn, this is crazy that it went from that to, being a fine artist,
Well,
being in galleries. This is insane.
yeah. It's kind of kind of like you were talking about with Dean Kushner. Like you appropriately, like your chest is out now. Like it's like
Yeah,
you can proud like you and not just in like you proud of the work you've done, but proud of what you've overcome. And I think it's in a lot of ways it's this it's yours is more extreme. Like you say, you and the times make more mistakes. The things out of your hands, like, and
yeah,
it's just like you make your luck, like you put yourself in positions to um like I think you have a great story about how you got involved in that like Cardi B video, right? Where it's just like
yeah,
you've you've faced mistakes well, and you've also like been quick to pivot and sort of embrace opportunities that came with like just on a whim. And I think that's those like the soft skills that you have and the soft skills that we all can develop as humans. That's we were talking about that at the AI event at Endicott last week. We're like, listen, don't everyone get all overwhelmed about AI. Like, what you need to be at the end of the day is a good fucking human and have the
literally.
right soft skills
Like,
and be open to things, be nice. And I was like, yeah, when I graduated from Boston University, I was like, damn, I got some student loans to pay, and I got this
yeah.
book and it had a smiley face on it, and it said the power of nice. And I was like, really? Is nice going to pay back my student loans? Turns out it does. Like,
Yeah.
turns out it does. I read that damn book 5 or 6 times. Like, it's all these little anecdotes. It's like good karma. I'm like, has everyone ever read The Secret? No. Anyone know what good karma is? And then everyone raises their hand. I'm like, that's
Yeah,
all it is. It's like what goes around comes around. Just like be a good, nice, kind human, and like
yeah,
find the things that bring out in you what you feel like is the best version of you, and understand that it's not a straight line to success,
yeah.
and like th- bring it down to those simple things, right?
Yeah, and you're not for everyone. Like, not
Yeah.
everyone's gonna like me. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily like, I don't care if, like, I'm not out here trying to get people to like me. I don't care. Like, I genuinely am just want to put good I want to just make art, be a good person, talk to people. And I think that's where social media, which we touched on earlier on in the podcast, is that's where social media is such a struggle for me because it's like trying to get all these people to like you, right? It's like I want all these people to like me. I
It's
think
all
it's
about gratification.
yeah, it's going to affect generations to come where it's like
Yeah.
how are you growing up now trying to get all these people to like you? You're not supposed to care if people like you. People are like not everyone's gonna like you, and that's okay. And
Yeah.
you're supposed to be authentic to yourself. You're not supposed to be like this in this situation and like this in this situation just so people like you or care. Like it doesn't. And it's just the way society has implemented that into social media, into people's brains, into the younger generation where they're searching for gratitude, instant gratification. They're searching for all this stuff online. The iPad kids at dinner
Yeah. Yeah.
blows my mind. If I took an iPad out, if I take my phone out at dinner with my dad, he's on me in a second. If
Yeah.
I'm sitting there, if I'm sitting there watching TV with my dad, he's on me in a second. So I see these iPad kids and I'm like, oh man, that's it. That's addiction starting as a kid.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. It
so
is.
it's just
It
crazy.
is. Yeah. Let's revisit your legacy, and then you can go
Yeah.
back to your quote too. But like, talk about the legacy that you're looking to leave.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking to be, remembered with the great artists that have lived. I mean, I'm looking to be spoken about long after I'm gone. I'm looking to be debated upon. The point of refined graffiti is the clash of the fine art world and the graffiti world. So obviously there's some baggage that will come with that, but I think I want my legacy to be left, with people like Picasso's and he's still alive, but Banksy's, Andy Warhol, Shepard Fairey, just the people that have inspired me to become an artist, the people that I've studied. There's a Dali museum here in St. Petersburg. I go there all the time, and it's this that dude is crazy. Like he's crazy. Like the only thing I think of when I see his art, I'm like, this dude could paint, like straight up. And I want like that's
Yeah.
all I say to my friends when I
Yeah.
bring them. Like this
Respect.
dude could paint, yeah. And
Yeah.
I want to be remembered with them. I mean, I want my art to last forever. That's kind of where the quote came from. And I also want to be like an inspiration past art, just inspirational story. I mean, you got the story of Michael Jordan getting cut from teams. You got stories about a lot, a lot of different people who have done big things. And I'm connected to sports. I'm reading Mariano Rivera's book. He's ERA leader in the
Oh, cool.
MLB, best
Hmm.
closer for the New York Yankees of all time,
Hmm.
best closer of all time. And just what he went through to get to where he was is a story that I'm reading, and you see congruencies in stories like that, and it inspires you.
Mm.
He's from a small fishing town on the Panama Canal. He grew up in a hut with no electricity, no shoes, and his baseball glove was a six pack. Like, and his baseball was a rock wrapped in fishing line. And then he was the best closer of all time. And he turned down a deal with the Phillies that was like $20 million more than the Yankees were going to sign him for. And he was like, no, the Yankees gave me the chance to become this. Like I'm a Yankee for life. And like his
Hmm.
appreciation to his journey, his appreciation to where he came from is just great to see.
That's cool. I might. That's an interesting. You just that's a strong pitch for his auto. It's an autobiography.
So it's called. I'll grab it real quick.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
buddy bought
Grab
this.
it.
I'm a huge Yankee fan, so my buddy bought me this
Yeah.
book for my birthday. Um,
Yeah.
but it's a memoir, and it's written
Cool.
by Wayne Kofi, and Wayne Kofi is
Hmm.
one of the best sports writers of all time, and
Hmm.
Mariano is the best closer of all time.
Greatness.
Like, and
Yeah.
when I tell you this guy came from literally nothing, like legitimately nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's funny. There was a point. I was like you, I was like, get me out of my 20s. Made a lot of
Yeah,
mistakes. got humbled a lot appropriately,
Yeah.
and worked my tail off like you did.
Yeah.
And I remember that there was this point where I was like trying to read business books. And in my 30s, you know what I started doing? And you know what I did when I was a kid? I used to read like autobiographies about like, the like great athletes, and just
Yeah.
great stories about just achievement and like sport. Like I just was into sports, like played a few sports, like loved athletes. So, um, and also, you know what I love? I love fiction. like, and
Yeah.
I love good. And I've read, I'm like right now I'm on a Jim Harrison kick. I'm reading like wrote like Legends of the Fall. He was a writer in the 20th century, in the mid 20th century. Like he was writing novellas, which are like, short. And everyone's like, oh, you can't write novellas because you can't commercialize it. And he's like, I can write a beginning, middle, end in 100 words. Fuck off. And
Yeah.
that's Legends of the Fall. And like, so he wrote. So I don't know if you've ever read him. My brother, who's a writer, lives out in Italy. Like he got me into Jim Harrison, and like he flies
Yeah.
under the radar a bit in the States. He's actually super popular in Europe. He's more popular in
Yeah.
Europe, it seems. And so I'm just like, but I'm like, dude, I like devour these, and I get so many lessons out of it. So there's like fiction and like biography, autobiography, like from like inspired, like
Yeah.
that's kind of like those are my genres of reading. And now I know that, and I'm like, I'm reading more, and I'm like
Yeah.
like how I built this. It's like, yeah, I mean, now listen, if there's someone in tech that has like some super crazy rags to riches story and it's about the human kind of triumph, like I might be interested in that. But the like how to stuff, I've just realized I'm like, fuck all that. Like,
I've
I just want
I've
to be
never even
inspired.
tried. I've never even
Yeah,
tried.
good for you.
I think I read The War of Art, not The Art of War, The War of Art. The War of Art
Okay.
relates entrepreneurship to the artist. And this is another point. I think
Yeah.
an entrepreneur and an artist is the same thing. You're both creating something. I think they're very
Agree.
congruent. And it
Yeah.
talks about resistance and how resistance brings you off your path. That's kind of the only like book I've
Yeah.
read like that. But other than that, Jimi Hendrix biography is ridiculous. Like when
Mm.
you learn about Jimi Hendrix, and he was essentially, and I say this in the nicest way, he was essentially a stray dog in his neighborhood that people would just like feed and teach guitar. And
Mm.
BB King was one of the people who taught him guitar. And then he developed his style because people started comparing him to BB King, and he was like, "Nah, fuck that. I'm gonna do my own shit."
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
where his style came from. But then I went on like
Cool.
an Edgar Allan Poe kick. I got a couple books by him, so I'm always going. Always get like different kicks.
I love it. That's so cool.
Yeah,
By the way, that I like your point about artists and entrepreneurs. I agree because I
yeah,
like I some you call me a creative, call me an artist, or just call creative's the through line between the two. It's like to be either,
yeah,
you have to be creative,
yeah,
and you have to embrace that creativity and like not try to create derivatives of what everyone else is doing. Like I had someone
yeah,
looking at my business the other day. Is like uh, just for like like kind of like like evaluating like the consulting business we're building and like sharing with them, someone I trust, and so I'm sharing with them kind of like artifacts from the business and sort of like one pagers that represent us, and they're like, this
yeah,
is super like it's professional, but it's also like it's really unique. Like, where did you learn how to do this? Where did you learn how to showcase like your custom content studio like this or your brand work like that? Like, how did you who like did you? And I was like, honestly, I worked for like, you know, five different people that I admired and I looked up to, and none of
yeah,
that and they taught me a lot of things, but like one thing they didn't do was that like this is my instincts. It's like me as a
yeah,
creative in business, just like, hey, you know what seems pragmatic? Like, why create 20 PowerPoint slides? Like, why can't I create like a single visual that like tells the story and makes it digestible and creates optionality? Like, why can't I accomplish all the things that someone actually needs to understand like what myself and this collective of people can offer, and the optionality that exists for that person, who we're impressing upon, to just like feel like good and comfortable, like having some good clear choices to make. Like it seems
yeah,
so obvious, and it's just like, but yeah, no, like I don't know no one else that like, this is my art. Like I'm,
yeah,
my art is conversation and just like coming up with unique ways to just share like and how I'm executive producing these things. So yeah, dude, like as an entrepreneur, like I really like resonate strongly with you saying like entrepreneurs and artists are the same. Cause it's like, couldn't agree.
it
I feel like a
couldn't
lot of
be.
times I connect better to artists for that
Yeah,
reason.
like entrepreneurship could, in my mind, couldn't it couldn't be more of an art. Like The fact that people don't view it as an art is interesting to me. Um, like just the way, in order to build a business, you have to separate yourself, right? In order to be a an artist that is, profound, I guess. That's a great artist. You have to separate yourself. How do you separate yourself? Because you're not like anyone else. Like, you
You're
know,
one of one.
you're one of one. Like that's and and all these businesses that are one of ones that do really well that kind of break through, like Apple, for example. Like you don't just become that big because you're a good businessman. Like there is an art behind, Apple and why I have an iPhone sitting in front of me and a MacBook sitting in front of me and a Mac desktop in there. And I only use them because they're the best and like that's what I need to do what I do. Like,
Hmm.
Tesla's another ridiculous concept.
Yeah,
There's in order to build a business around what you believe in, you have to be an artist.
totally. So, what we always like to end these with, this is a blast. I can't wait to jam with you more as
Yeah.
time goes on. But we always like to end, and I appreciate you. I think you dig this question. Like a good, like, what's your challenge for
Yeah.
listeners?
So my challenge is to do something that you've been thinking about for a long time and make yourself uncomfortable. I believe that when you make yourself uncomfortable, good things happen, and you'll learn a little bit about yourself, and you might learn a skill that you never knew, or you might learn you like something that you never knew. So my challenge is make yourself uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be every day, once a week. And when I say uncomfortable, I mean like really, really uncomfortable. Like if you've never cooked and you want to try making chicken parm, do it. Like
Hmm.
something, it could be simple, but put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and see what comes from it.
Nice. Anything recently you've done to make yourself uncomfortable? I mean, you moved to Tampa. How comfortable or uncomfortable was that? But anything. I mean, feel free to comment. But
Yeah,
I'm curious. Like,
oil
what's
painting.
a challenge? Yeah.
Every single time I'm working on an oil painting series. I just did one of my dad. And when I say like of my dad, it's not realism. Um, But oil painting, I doubt myself every time I pick up a paintbrush with oil paint on it, and every time I'll send you some photos. I'll text you some photos.
Okay.
But every time I love the way it comes out. So that's what I do, and I do that at least once a month. But oil paint it takes after it takes 2-3 weeks for me to finish an oil painting. So I'm doing it every
Right.
day for 2-3 weeks, and that is probably the most uncomfortable thing that I do within my career.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it sounds like you should keep hanging out there
100%.
because it's gonna be good for your growth. Kyle, this has
Yeah,
been a blast, dude.
yeah,
We're consider you a new friend and a
I
kindred
agree.
spirit, and some I look forward to sharing this with the world, but also finding ways to collab on some of the points we talked about. Maybe the newsletter collab. We'll have to talk to Curly too. Maybe we can do something a little extra special with our go to market. Maybe introduce some of your art or pieces or just in the assets that we create. But we'll have to we'll schedule a jam sesh on that. But just thank you for
100%.
being present with me. Thanks for spending so much time and just
Of
really
course.
inspired by your story and loving
Thank
what
you.
you're doing and I couldn't be more grateful for having this chat today.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you. And we just turned the first page, so more to come.
Right on. Right on. This is
Talk to
this
you.
is like first page. We're not even through the first chapter yet.
Yeah, we're on
All
the
right.
introduction.
There you go. Cheers, Boston.
Cheers. Have a good one.